guys, thank you for checking out Ruff Reviews. I'm Terry Ruff, and I got a Ruff review for Wu Assassin. So it stars Iko Uwais. He's the main character from The Raid and The Raid 2, and they're really good for their martial arts, but their story is just enough there to kind of get you to where you need to go. So Wu Assassins is kind of in that same vein, where it tries to capture a lot of that action-packed martial arts. But my thing is with Wu Assassins, it's good, but it's not a great show. It has a lot of action. It even starts off right off the bat. First episode, action-packed, stuff is going, people are flying all over the place, punches are thrown. But when it starts to introduce some of the more magical elements with the Wu are these people that have these Wu Zing. It's the things that give them powers. There's 5 elements. There's fire, water, metal, wood, and earth. And supposedly when all these powers are together, it makes some big magical thing happen. You see that at the end of the season, what this big magical thing is, but to me, when they start incorporating a lot of the magical stuff with the martial arts and the storyline, doesn't really mix very well. So you got the martial arts and the storyline with the triad and the gangs and everything, and that was actually pretty intriguing. That was pretty cool. I liked where they were going with that. I liked how they had the main characters kind of interacting, and they had their story, how they grew up together and they're very close. But then they started throwing in some of the magical stuff, and it was kind of jarring. It didn't really make sense. It didn't really mix very well. It didn't really seem to sit right. They would go from martial arts and drama, and then they would do magic, and it was like, how does this even go together? When they first introduced it in the first episode, it just happened, just out of nowhere. And the main character even asked, "Why am I chosen?" It was like, just because you were there. It's like, okay, I mean, I guess so. So whatever, I'm in for the ride, right? So the first episode was definitely kind of hard. And then when you get to the second and third episodes, that's where, if you're on the train at that point for the whole story, then I think you can get through the whole season. It's still kind of zany a little bit, but I think for me, if I were to watch this again, which I don't see myself watching this again anytime soon, it would be for more of the magical elements and how they actually use the powers, because I really enjoyed how they portrayed the different elements. You would think fire just blows up stuff, water, I don't know, healing stuff and flows everywhere. Earth was just strong man kind of thing. Wood is probably something weak and just flowers and stuff. Metal is probably something with swords and katanas and stuff like that, seen as this is martial arts. But actually they portrayed them really differently. Metal did something really crazy with metal that actually almost had nothing to do with metal, except on a more detailed, minute basis. I would say go check out X-Men Last Stand. They did a little something different in that with metal, with Magneto. And then wood, I would say I really liked him. I really liked how he used the powers, because it wasn't just wood, I make trees grow and I control grass and stuff. It was definitely something more like healing, the essence of life itself, and I thought it was really cool. When they introduced the main bad guy, I think he's definitely one of the more intriguing characters of the show, because he wasn't just a bad guy for bad guy's sake. He definitely had a complex story, starting from him being kind of a tragic character at the beginning, and then when they show him again, it's like, okay, this guy is definitely evil. He's definitely doing some bad stuff. And then when you get to the wrap up of the season at the end, it's like, man, you know what? I actually do feel kind of bad for him again. And overall, that makes for a really good character to me. Then when you get to the main character, he kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit, because there were times where it's like he was kind of just a little too much. He was just a little too into himself as to, well, I won't forgive you. I won't hear what you have to say. By the end of the season, he was definitely doing some stuff that seemed against his character, against his code a little bit. I guess that's kind of the progression of the story, or the characters have to go through an arc, they have to change. Maybe they're just showing that maybe you don't always change for the better, you change for the worse. Maybe that was something that could be interesting, sure. But they were showing one of the other bad guys he had a relationship with, where it was like, well, please forgive me. And like the bad guy was more of a good guy than the good guy was. I don't know, it seemed like they were really kind of hitting us over the head a lot with that concept, the relationship between the two. It got tiring at first, but I was hoping they would really kind of wrap up their story a little bit better than what they did in the season. They had a really cool Game of Thrones, Walking Dead kind of shock towards the end, and I was like, okay, they went there. I didn't think they would do that, but they definitely went there. They had one bad guy during the season that I didn't really understand at first, that he was even a bad guy, that he was in a part of the show, but apparently he's one of the main actors, one of the main cast of the show. To be honest, I can only think of maybe 2 scenes that he was even in that brought any kind of relevance. Other than that, I was like, okay, even a part of the show, I don't really need to see him anymore. But then another main female character, I thought she was pretty cool. She definitely had a strong sense of trying to find herself, trying to definitely tackle some of the issues that I think a lot of maybe Chinese families go through with obedience, tradition, and just compliance to their family, to their parents' wishes, and just how things are supposed to be all the time. And I thought it was kind of cool that they actually tackled something like that in a show like this, where it was supposed to be more action and fantasy. It was like, this is some deep-rooted family issues that they were going through. And then her brother, Tommy, definitely kind of played against the type. He was definitely the wild, kooky, like always in trouble bad guy. Not bad guy like villain, but just doesn't have his stuff together. He was definitely kind of more of a tragic character in a little bit of a way. And I thought they were going to do a little bit something different with him in his storyline. But I thought it was okay. I thought everyone had their own part to play, including him, with their character arc and how they grew. And he grew a little bit too, along with his sister, and the whole family dynamic and how they're supposed to be a certain way traditionally. They had another character who's Lu Zin Lee. He was there too. He was kind of cool. He was kind of like the more brutish big guy who was kind of more of a muscle brain, muscle head kind of dude. He just kind of did the first thing that came to his mind. He was a little bit more rash than the others, and it was cool. I mean, he was all right. Didn't really stand out too much. They tried to give him something to do by him being a little more angry. He was a little more rash, a little more jump to the gun kind of thing. And I see what they were going for there. At the same time, he still wasn't like a big deal to me. It seemed like he had a lot more resources and ways of getting things done, being like a crime boss. And I was like, okay, all right, he's useful was the main thing about him. The other character I was speaking of before was Uncle Six. Well, first off, his name is Uncle Six. I mean, that's kind of cool. Kept calling him your father, and he was his Uncle Six. And I was like, okay, I think I'm starting to understand what's going on here. Actually, his father, like I said, he's a surrogate father. He kind of helped raise him, kind of showed him things. Had a very complicated relationship. But I thought he was probably one of the better characters of the show. He was complicated. He was torn between being a prominent crime boss that he earned it, to being more like a father, and he didn't want to betray the trust of his surrogate son. And the whole season he was kept trying to prove himself over and over and over. And I thought that was pretty interesting. It was definitely different. It was definitely different from the norm. You had your tropes and you had your cliche characters, and then you twist them around a little bit and you just make it interesting, make it impactful. And I think that's what really carries the show. And then, like I said before, what kind of hurts it is where they took the characters and then just threw in these magical elements. It's like, okay. And then they had another character. She's more of a side character. She was Uncle Six's first lieutenant, kind of henchman chick or whatnot. Her name is Zan. I thought she was pretty cool. At first, I didn't really think too much of her. But then as they kind of showed her get a little bit more power throughout the show towards the later half of the season, I thought she became a real powerhouse to have to deal with, a real nuisance to have to deal with in a way. I didn't feel like they really wrapped her story up very well in this season. I'm hoping in season 2, and yes, there will be a season 2, that they kind of do a little bit more and they kind of help flush her out a little bit more. She definitely had a interesting relationship with Uncle Six that I thought, again, was complicated. It wasn't your straightforward, yes sir, I do everything you say, sir. Kind of was, but then it had a twist to it, and I was like, okay, that's definitely different. I like how they were going there, but they didn't this season, I know they were saving it for second season, but it just didn't feel like they finished it out this season. They didn't give it like a nice end story. And I think that's where it had more of that Game of Thrones kind of feel to it. Like, okay, they cut it off, but then people will pick back up later on. So to kind of wrap things up, I think the show is very good as far as your action and whatnot. I think the drama was definitely there to kind of help with the story. The fantasy elements part of it was interesting. It was definitely interesting, definitely different, but it was just kind of weird. They didn't really merge it together very well. They didn't really make it mix and make it sit 100% right with me. I don't think a lot of people are going to watch the show and feel like it's something worth watching. I think people like myself that like martial arts and kung fu and karate and whatnot, and then also likes fantasy elements like magic and stuff like that, I think those people are definitely might watch this and might continue to watch it, maybe even watch the season 2. I think everybody else, the more casual audience, probably won't stick around for after episode 1, probably won't even finish episode 1, to be honest. I think it's definitely worth sitting down and watching at least the first 3 episodes. If you don't like it after the first 3, just not gonna like the whole season. And then also they definitely season bait for season 2. Even the ending was kind of weird. It was like they didn't wrap it up very well. It was like, this is the ending. It was like, yay, it's over. Like, we beat the bad guy. And then it was like, well, we feel bad, and you know, we're gonna talk to each other, but it's not really. It was just kind of abrupt. It was kind of like just cut off. And then like 2 seconds before before the scene was over, it was like, oh hey, wait, you know what? Season 2, here we come. I was like, oh, that didn't. But anyways, please like and subscribe and comment below and let me know, and I'll see you on the next Ruff Reviews.